Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bedomy, and this is Warhammer Inquisitor Martyr. A mouthful of a title that was developed by Neocore Games, whom you might know as the developers behind, the incredible misadventures of Van Helsing trilogy, and also a top-down action-adventure called The Legend of King Arthur, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I played any of their games, but Neocore usually focuses on action RPGs similar to Diablo. And this is, by no big surprise, another action RPG set in the Warhammer universe. The game was released in 2018 for PS4, Xbox, and PC, and it will see a re-release for PS5 and Xbox Series S in 2022, which is this year. Or, if you're watching this anytime later, it was re-released in 2022 for PS5 and Xbox Series S. Anyway, what is Inquisitor Martyr? It's a top-down action RPG that focuses on the main mechanics of Warhammer, either ranged or close-quarters combat. And it does have some unique spins to the formula with cover mechanics and, cover deterioration as the cover takes damage. But there are some problems with the game that I have to admit, and we'll take a look at them one at a time, but first things first, let's take a look at the options menu, shall we? So as you can see, in the options menu we have quite a lot to adjust, from loot auto pickup of the loot, tactical view settings, to general language, map opacity, cursor size, camera settings, disable movement with mouse, dash to cursor. Lots of small gameplay tweaks we can adjust to our own personal leisure. And there's also the video options, which is beautiful. You can adjust the contrast, gamma, brightness, saturation, resolution, choose the windowed mode, or several different window modes. You can customize your quality of the visual presentation, such as character details, shadow details, physics levels, FPS limits, AA, anti-aliasing, VSync, visual effects, and you can adjust quite a lot, as you can see. The audio options allows you to adjust a lot as well. I mean, there's the master volume, music volume, sound effects, UI sounds, speech sounds, video sounds, which is for cutscenes, basically. When you hear, for the cutscenes audio. So I do enjoy this quite a bit when it comes to the options menu. The only bigger gripe I have with the game is it was designed for consoles first. So by default, it will try to it will force you to play with a controller if you have one plugged into your PC. And that came as an unpleasant surprise for me because I was charging my controller. I was planning on playing this with a mouse and keyboard, but the game wouldn't let me use them, so I had to start up the controller and go to figure out how to navigate towards the options menu, and then navigate towards the disable the controller, which was quite annoying because, as you can see, this is with the mouse and keyboard. If I enable the controller, it will change the UI completely so that it's more controller friendly, which is nice. But I really wish that the controller was not enabled by default. If this is a PC game, and it is, let's be honest, action RPGs started off on the PC with Diablo 1 and 2, so why do you force people to play with a controller when navigation and ability usage is more natural with the mouse and keyboard? Anyway, that's me just jumping all around, but yeah, that's one of the many gripes I have with the game. As you can see, you can change the shortcuts to your own personal preferences, as always with these types of games. And as you can see, there are some abilities that are locked to specific character classes. For example, dodging is only reserved for assassins, while, let's see, assassin is the most nimble one of the characters you can play with, so you don't, Psyker or Mage in this, Mage or a Psyker who is an old and more or less AoE focused character will not be as nimble, while heavy melee tank character will also be more of a static fighter. But yeah, every class has its own unique skill sets that they bring to the table. As for the miscellaneous, you have user agreement and privacy policy cookies, which I recommend that you do not accept if able. And that's pretty much it for the options menu. I would recommend that you try to play this game offline for your first playthrough. And I mean that disconnect yourself from the network, because the game is set to online by default. And that's really annoying. And if you ask me, it takes a lot while longer to load up the game if your network is terrible and the game is looking for updates or other. It's trying to connect to the server, and it will take 5 or 10 minutes. Well, it takes at least 5 to 10 minutes for me to start up the game, which is really annoying. One time I'm guessing this is due to the network, because when my network was down and I decided to play the game just to pass the time, it started off in a minute or two. So I'm guessing it's because of the network issue, or I just got lucky on that one point. But yes, try to disable your network when you're playing this if you want to play it. If you don't want to wait up for it to load in 10 or so minutes, if you're having a weak network. So that's pretty much it for network gripes, and as you can see, the game has quite a lot of DLC. It has several DLCs to offer, from DLC missions as well as a prophecy expansion, which gives you access to additional class of character. These are, we'll get to these. These are seasonal events, let's call them. Week of the Squadron and Edict of Extermination are events you can finish up by just playing the game. We don't need any DLCs for that, but DLCs themselves are pretty interesting mission packs that give you challenging missions as well as decent loot. But I don't have any DLCs enabled. I just saw a couple of them on YouTube as well as read about them, so I think they're interesting. But take a look at that as we progress through the gameplay itself. For now, let's take a look at the character creation. As you can see, I only have one character enabled. This is my main character, which is a melee fighter. But by default, you have by default you have 3 classes, and the Tech Adept is the DLC class you get with the expansion. And what's interesting about this game is that every class has its own subclasses, as you can see. Unfortunately, due to something, the game is kind of slow, but you can choose between 2 separate characters. One is the seasonal character you can create for the online season that's currently going, and this will grant you special rewards for playing the game with this character, and special rule sets that the character that the season has created. So, for example, if there's a Blood for the Blood God season, you will probably be more encouraged to cause bleeding to other characters, or you will bleed faster or take more damage quicker, unless you do damage yourself. That's just my Honestly, that's just my guess here. I would recommend that you start off with the story mode if you're new to action RPGs, because story mode is tailored for players who never played an RPG. It's mostly a power fantasy. Every enemy is 1 or 2 hit kill, and even the boss fights are easy, but you can readjust the difficulty at your leisure whenever you choose on a different mission. And yeah, once you choose your preferred difficulty, you can choose the subclass for the character. And unfortunately, I don't think this is the network issue at this point. I think it's mostly I think the game is just poorly optimized. It takes long to load the assets. Might not be the network. Well, it might be partially due to the network, but also partially due to optimization itself. But yeah, as you can see, every class has its own subclasses. For example, the Crusader has a melee-oriented fighter and a gunner, and a heavy gunner. Granted, you can always switch up weapons to your own personal preference, but every subclass will have its own benefits and bonuses for specific weapons. Heavy gunner will be better off with shotguns and las guns, as well as he'll prefer a demolition armor, which is this heavy set of armor that fires rockets. And also I don't think that you can choose between these. I think that all of these free resources you can see here are basically your perks you have enabled. But just in case, let me check. Yeah. Every class has this free resources available to them, which is the ability to wear a specific type of armor, weapon specialization, as well as the special resource they gave, such as focus, which grants them the ability to use their abilities. And this resource track here is just which weapon which weapons they prefer to work with. So, without further ado, let's go into the gameplay itself and finally take a look at the game, if it will work. And thankfully it will, but now we'll have to wait for a while and see how long does the load take. I think I'm just gonna skip ahead with the editing and let you guys into the gameplay itself in a few minutes. And welcome back, folks. As I said, the loading took a while, so I just skipped ahead for your viewing convenience. So let's take a quick look at the ship we're currently commanding. This is not the Martyr, which is the ghost ship which is a big space hulk that just vanished into the warp. I'm gonna assume that those of you viewing know about Warhammer, but if you're unfamiliar, I'll try to give you a quick rundown of everything. Well, I'm not a lore expert, but I will try to give you a explanation as the gameplay progresses. First things first, let's take a look around the ship, which is our command hub, where we can interact with this is not our party, but this is our retinue of characters we can use to access other important parts of the gameplay. For example, an astropath will give us access to DLC missions, which I do not have purchased, so he's useless. You can use this terminal to enter co-op multiplayer and play with friends. The Inquisitor, or tech priest here, as you can see, she is a woman with a lot of mechanical tendrils attached to her, is your main medical expert, so she will grant you passive bonuses for your healing items. So you can choose which type of healing bonuses you prefer when you use a healing item. You can adjust them here. So I've kind of focused more on healing with my current build, and the Space Marine here, as you can see, let's try to get closer. As you can see, the Space Marine here will give us access to PvP. They're all story-related characters who you can unlock as the story progresses, and they will give you additional missions as well as... Well, they won't give you additional missions, they will just comment over the missions as you take them on. I mean, seriously, I took some side jobs before I even met these two, and they already gave me their comments and basically commented over my playthrough of the mission, as if they were with me already. So the game is... I'm not sure how to describe it. It has a pretty fun gameplay, but the pacing focus is somewhat ridiculous. Also, this is the ship's captain, or at least she is the main trader of our vessel. We're the owner of the said vessel, but she commands everything on the ship. Basically, we just command her and sell her the useless gear we don't want. So as you can see, I'm just going to sell most of this stuff because it's next to useless for my character. I mean, just look at the statistics. It's already negative on quality, and passive bonuses I get from the items are... Well, it depends on your personal preference, but I usually try to go with better gear for my whole build. And what's the sad part about the game is you'll get most of your best items by just roaming around and killing things. You can just keep this. You can just keep the trader around to sell or use unwanted gear because she never has anything useful to sell. I mean, this is not late game items, but seriously, I'm level 25, and the gear she's offering me is basically under-leveled. Just look at this. I mean, the lower I go, the worse it gets. Okay, these amplification devices might be useful, but I'm not gonna gamble with my currency just yet. It's nice that there are some amplifications you can purchase for in-game credits, but most of those items I could purchase here are next to useless, and I'll switch them out very quickly if a need arises. So that's it for the command bridge. Let's hop into the gameplay itself. The star map will let you choose which parts of which missions to take. So I can go to this planet in subsector Kulabara. I honestly don't know what's the name of the Nereus 2. My apologies. Subsector Nereus 2 of sector something else. Okay. But yeah, as you can see, the map gives me a big choice of missions. So I have a whole star system to explore and take on missions, and every subsector in the star system itself has a level rating, which shows you how difficult the area of encounters will be. So as you can see, this is pretty much the story missions are highlighted in purple, which means that I, as you can see, I have 26, and the story mission is still on level 5. So pacing is a bit of a... Well, pacing is okay. The story is interesting, but the level scaling is kind of questionable, to put it mildly. At this point, I'll be just steamrolling through the story, and I'll unlock the late game. I can unlock the late game areas already. As you can see, every sector is protected by an online player, which is the most influential player of the area. So that's the online factor of the leaderboard. The top player in the specific system will be its designated protector, and he'll get... I'm not sure if he'll get better items or equipment, but he will probably get some XP bonuses as well as better gear as a reward for being the top player. But since this, I'm not really interested in top scoreboards, so I'm just gonna play the game for the fun of it. And that's the thing. I'm here for the fun, and these are just my first impression videos. If I like the game, I will play it for a long period of time. But if I find the gameplay boring, every gameplay can be interesting, but some games are better enjoyed with friends, and some are better off being played solo. For example, a Yakuza game is a story-driven action game as well as DMC, so you'll most likely play them solo because you want to feel like a badass. And action RPGs like Diablo or Inquisitor are generally focused on late game and co-op missions where you have to play with a small party of people and just fight off against big hordes of invaders and other monsters. So, yeah, I don't think I'll play this for long. I'll just play through the story and then uninstall the game. In all due honesty, I don't have anyone to play this with, so I'll just play the gameplay play it this once and then see what happens. If I want to explore how the Psyker or the Assassin work, I'll play another time, but I honestly don't know what to say about the game at this point. I don't know. I can tell you this: the loading screens are very interesting. They have pretty decent
Tactical
artwork.
noospheric network online. Target has been barricaded behind a security door to avoid immediate extermination by hostiles. The door will be breached within a few Terran minutes. Violent intervention required to retrieve the subject alive.
So yes, as you can see, this game is welcome to the Inquisitor Martyr. This is the main meat and bones of the game. It's a top-down action adventure where you fight off hordes of humans, demons, and other heavily armored individuals. And it takes a lot of time to actually load up. But control-wise, it's fairly simplistic. You have access to 2 weapon abilities and 2, not 2. You have 1 armor ability and 1 utility, the item you can use to your own personal leisure, at your own leisure. As you can see, I'm mostly focusing on an axe and shield combo, which can be used to an axe and shield combo, which is a pretty devastating weapon combination. Just give me a second, I need to check where I'm going. Yes, as you can see, I need to focus on my weapons, gear, and then see what to use and when. So depending on which weapons I'm using, I'll have access to...
Target secured with basic organic functions intact. Reach the extraction zone for subatomic matter displacement.
Yes, you can see, depending on which weapons I'm using, I'll have access to different abilities. So for example, at the moment I'm using 2 plasma guns as dual-wielding plasma guns, which are pretty devastating at long range. And they also have some unique...
I must stop this emperor's forsaken noise.
And they also have some unique abilities attached to them. I can quickly swap weapons between 2 weapon sets, and all things considered, this is nice. I can quickly switch to a long-range weapon if I need to. I can use my armor ability to destroy or defend myself from tougher opponents. And also I can use cover in combination with my long-range weapons to fight off worse opponents. Fight off tougher opponents who are in a distance. At least lower their health a bit before they start attacking me for real. But the problem with this game is it was designed for consoles first, and it shows it. Sometimes yeah, as you can see, sometimes your cursor will not recognize your input command to attack. You will just move past an opponent and take a buttload of damage for it. And sometimes your get behind cover command will not connect properly, and your character will go to the other side and stay exposed. But in all due honesty, I do enjoy the game for what it is. It's a fun action adventure, but it was designed for consoles first.
Subject retrieved in adequate condition. A most unlikely achievement. End of log.
And it shows. It's a pretty okay action adventure. That's all I'm trying to say here. It's not something you can live without. Basically, the gameplay is fun. You can enjoy the architecture of the 40K setting. As you can see, this world is pretty much this is a pretty industrial, well, not industrial, but I'm not sure. I'm never too sure how to describe Warhammer to someone who never played it. So, but basically, humanity believes that their god is that their leader from several millennia ago is the new god of humanity. So they worship him like crazy and attack anyone and everything that doesn't fit with their worldviews. Basically, they will attack any alien they see, any intelligent life forms, any intelligent alien life forms they encounter that might be peaceful are generally attacked and killed on sight. Same goes for mutants as well as anyone who is not a religious fanatic. If you do not worship the Emperor, you're executed on the spot, or burned by the Inquisitors, or nearby priests, or the idiotic mob that follows them. It's a pretty fun setting, all things considered. But its problem is that it's a pretty fun setting to explore with some pretty interesting stories to listen and enjoy. I mean, the Ghost stories are some of my favorite books I've read in the recent years. Very fun, very action-packed, very intriguing when it comes to, well, they're mostly action-focused stories, but they do focus a lot on other aspects of life in the Imperium, so you can actually read them. I think you can read anything from Dan Abnett without too much knowledge about Warhammer in general. The guy is a very competent writer. He writes you a decent story set in the universe. Even if it was a... So yeah, you can follow it. You just need to know. This is a big... there's a big war in space, and humanity is fighting off demons. and actually I probably just use that explanation for the game itself. You're a holy crusader fighting off demons invading human planets, human-controlled planets. But anyway, that's the action portion of the gameplay. You will always take on missions, and then you, depending on which difficulty you took and which level of the planet it is, you'll get experience. Usually a pretty low amount of experience, depending if you're fighting on a lower difficulty planet. So for this one, I didn't get much of experience, so I cannot level up that easily, but I can still show you most of my progression. As you can see, this is my character's perks tree, and as well as his attributes tree. Here I can choose and allocate points to empower his warfare, which gives him extra bonuses to his damage output, toughness, which gives him HP regeneration and increases his overall toughness, while virtue is my resistances and other bonuses. And then as I level up, I'll get specific rewards. This tier just shows me what I'll get once I finish leveling up. I'll get an extra incubator or healing item component. I'll get a passive skill point, as well as a new level, while my inventory tree will just inventory is just inventory. You can see what you got, and you can equip new and powerful items on yourself. The passive skill tree is where the most fun things happen. As you can see, most of these skill trees are actually locked out, and as I play the game, I'm actually unlocking them through the usage of abilities and specific weapons. Since I started off as a melee-focused fighter, this is the default tree I had unlocked, and I'm primarily focusing on unlocking all of the skill trees here. And depending on which weapons I prefer to use, I'll unlock additional skill trees that allow me to use additional abilities. For example, I used a lot of flamethrowers and area effects weaponry, so once I finish unlocking the skill tree, I can put some points into additional damages to AoE attacks. Movement will unlock itself once you pass a certain distance and use certain abilities that allow you to move faster. And finally, you have the heroic deeds tree, which allows you to, this is your achievement progression list, basically. And it helps you keep track of all the achievements if you want to get some additional achievements. So as I said, there are some gameplay elements that are unique to every season. For this, I doubt the Edict of Extermination is a seasonal thing, but it's a monthly or weekly thing, I think. I'm not sure. I just started playing it. I started playing the game last month, so basically, these are high priority targets that these are specific targets that I will probably encounter somewhere along the game as I play through the levels. And depending on where I am, a specific named character might show up, and if I kill him, I'll get a nice little bonus of experience and gear, but the main focus is just to kill a stronger opponent, and these guys are usually challenging. They have AoEs as well as summoning abilities, so you have to be careful when you fight them. So, since this mission we took was a relatively small one, we finished it up pretty quickly. We'll just hop on into another nearby mission and try to take that challenge as well. This is a assassination mission, so I think we'll have to fight off specific targets. So let's let's not waste too much time here and just hop into the gameplay. Yeah. As I said, the artwork for loading screens is interesting. It has some pretty well crafted portraits of characters, and sometimes it gives you character models in weird poses, which are supposed to be cool, I guess. And while you wait, and you get tips, but
Priority purge protocols initiated and being observed. Noospheric data streams are thrice encrypted and set to optimal flow. Good hunting.
So yes, as you can see, the voice acting is pretty decent all around. But as we go through the gameplay, I think you've already noticed there are two separate health bars here. One is your suppression level, which is how well protected you are against specific types of, well, not specific, all types of attacks, basically. So the better it is, the lower the chances of you getting knocked down or slowed or any type of negative effects will take place on your character. The higher your suppression level. Yeah, the lower your suppression level is, the bigger the chances of you getting knocked down. There is a bigger chance of you getting knocked down or slowed or any other negative effects might take place on your character. So your overall goal in the game is to just stay away and stay protected for a longer period of time. And just keep in mind, this does not the suppression level does not mean you're protected from damage. If you get hit, you will take health damage, which thankfully regenerates fairly quickly. But since this is a story mode, partially story mode, partially custom difficulty, you can adjust the difficulty of side missions to your own personal preference. But for the sake of the video, I'm just going for the easier ones. And just going through a power fantasy here. As I said, the gameplay's fun, but the big problem here is that the game was designed for consoles first and the controller scheme in mind. So sometimes you will try to attack a character, it will not register, the mouse cursor will not register it correctly, and you'll end up running past the said opponent and come on, attack. You will attack. You'll run past and take a lot of damage before you start attacking the said target. And also, the ability, some of your abilities will not go where you want them, even if you place a cursor, even if you mark the target with a cursor. So if I want to, not where I want to place the mines, you'd think that placing mines somewhere nearby would that mines have a certain range you have to be in order to place them. Well, they do have a range that they have to be placed in, but it's hard to tell what that range is and when and where you'll. Well, it will go for where you last placed your cursor, but sometimes it doesn't work that well, and you end up losing you end up wasting your ability for something ridiculous. I mean, there was this one time during a boss fight where I aimed my character at the enemy and used my 4 ability to rain fire upon him, but nope, my character turned around and started shooting in a different direction, which was rather embarrassing and annoying, but details, I guess. As well as I mentioned already, if you're not careful where you place your where you place your cursor, you might accidentally walk into the line of fire before you take cover, and that can be rather annoying. Not to mention that there's a serious frame rate issue. Well, I'm not sure if it's a frame rate issue or something, but the game tends to freeze on occasions. I'm not sure, maybe it's because of the amount of enemies I'm dealing with, or it's because of the abilities I'm using, but I do tend to end up in ridiculous situations where my attack that was supposed to hit just doesn't connect to anything, and then I have to wait for it to reset itself and take damage from a horde of enemies, or just rage against a whole bunch of angry demons. Also, as you can see on the map, on occasion you will see skulls and other icons on the map that indicate there is a tougher opponent that you're about to face. The problem with these opponents is they're not very distinct when it comes to these skull icons. It just means there's a tougher opponent, but there's no visual distinction between the said opponent and the rest of the crew he's fighting with. I mean, just tell me, which one of these guys is the subbot, the skull carrier I'm supposed to fight? Apparently it was a sniper, but the guy had no distinguishing markings, and nothing made him different from the sniper that was just highlighted in red. So I find the game somewhat polarizing at times. It has a fun mob. It has a fun mob fighting mechanic, which is just throw a lot of opponents your way and let you deal with them how you see fit. But
undesired variable removed.
But yeah, as you can see, I do not see a difference between any special characters that I'm supposed to fight. Apart from the named bounties, there's a little distinction between the skull-shaped, well, not skull-shaped, but skull-indicated opponents and regular opponents. And also, as you saw, there is a small execution mechanic that allows me to kill an opponent. Apparently allows me to kill opponents with a flashy move, but so far I didn't see much of a difference. My character just performs a double slash animation, and that's pretty similar to his right click attack. So I don't see much of a difference when it comes to opponents. And yeah, the only difference here is the
enemy combat efficiency
commander,
at
who is
critical
our
level.
target.
No further actions needed. The machine god is pleased. End of log.
So yeah, the game has fun moments, but there is not much else to it. The enemy variety is decent. There are different demons to deal with. There are different humanoid enemies to fight off, as well as Space Marine enemies, which are augmented humans and heavy tank armor. But the problem here is that if you want to distinct them as threats, the game doesn't give you any visual indication that these specific individuals are tougher. it shows you that there is what the opponent can do with under its health bar and everything, but that's not much of a difference if you can kill him quick enough. If these skull indicated enemies were something a bit more challenging or had more mechanics to them, I'd probably play this game. I'd probably be a bit more excited to play against them. But as it is, they're just highlighted enemies that do a little more damage, and that's about it. And honestly, that's pretty much it for Inquisitor. It's pretty competently made one versus horde type of a game, but unless you're really bored or have friends to play this with and just mess around with, I'd honestly give this game a pass. It's a good power fantasy that you can sink a couple of minutes of daytime into just to pass the time, but otherwise, I honestly wouldn't be playing this game if I had anything different. So yeah, the gameplay fine on the consoles. On the PC, it needs to be reworked. As I said, sometimes it doesn't connect well to the. It doesn't connect well to when you click on something. The item generation is horrible. Most of the time you get terrible items at the end of everything. Well, let's try this again. The item generation is horrible. You don't get decent items on maps you're exploring. You don't get decent items that are equal to your level and the shop itself. So the amount of so there's not much use for the store itself. It might be in the late game, but as it is, I'm not very happy with the item generation, as well as the enemy distinction should be clearer when it comes to sub-bosses and boss characters. I really want to like this game. I am a fan of Warhammer 40k in general, but I honestly think there are better. There are better action games set in the Warhammer. Well, actually, there aren't many action games set in the Warhammer universe, but I'm trying to say is there are better Warhammer games than this, and I think that Neocore could have done better. Warhammer has a lot of unique storytelling possibilities as well as gameplay mechanics, and I won't say this is lazy, but the game probably needed a little more time in the oven, and possibly a little more gameplay elements for every subclass, because every Crusader will have heavy armor, and they will be able to carry heavy weapons as well as power weapons. So if the subclasses could be distinct a bit more, I'd be happier as well. Anyway, guys, that's it for me for this week. I do apologize for the lack of content. As of late, I started college again, so I kind of had to focus on studying a little more, and the dogs are barking because they're hungry, so I'll have to bounce at this point. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Bedomy, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.